Hello, everyone. My name is Amya Bradley Woods, and in this video, I will explain my research project, Coping with Racialized Realities, Mental Well-Being of Black Portland Residents. This research study was conducted independently under the guidance of Associate Professor Dr. Raul Lievenos of the University of Oregon Sociology Department. So, without further ado, let's get into the specifics of the study. The city of Portland can be described as a white space. White space is a term that characterizes a space with an overwhelming presence of white people in it. Within these spaces, white people benefit from a high concentration of privilege, opportunity, and resources. Aside from being a white space, Portland has grown a reputation for being a very liberal city, giving off the impression that the city is welcoming to people of various identities and cultural backgrounds. However, this reputation tends to overshadow the history of anti-Black exclusionary practices that have taken place in the city. Some examples being the 1857 Exclusion Clause, which made it illegal for Black people to settle in the state of Oregon, discriminatory real estate practices such as redlining, and urban renewal projects which prompted the relocation of many Black families. This trend of anti-Black exclusionary practices continues today as Black Portlanders experience racism and discrimination in more subtle ways. The goals of this research were to examine the different strategies that Black Portlanders use to navigate their living experiences in Portland and identify what impacts these racialized conditions have on their mental well-being. My hope is that this research will spark interest in examining the issues Black communities in predominantly white spaces experience. For the study, my two primary research questions were, how do Black Portlanders navigate the racialized conditions of Portland? How do the racialized conditions of Portland and living experiences weigh on Black Portlanders' mental well-being? To answer these research questions, I conducted 10 one-on-one interviews with Black Portland residents. The interview questions were written to gather information on participants' experiences with racism/discrimination, strategies to navigate living in the city, and connections with the Black community. Participants also filled out a survey asking for demographic information to help provide context on the representativeness of the sample. Transcripts and recordings from the interviews were analyzed using a combination of open and focused coding to look for common themes. In addition to the data provided by the participants, I also gathered data from the U.S. Census that captured demographics in the city of Portland. If you bring your attention to the middle of the poster towards the top, you will see two bar graphs. The graph on the left displays the racial ethnic composition of white and Black people in Portland from years 2010 and 2020. Looking at that graph, you can see a distinct difference between the size of the white population compared to the Black population in Portland. Now, if you look at the bar graph on the right, you will see a display of this percentage of white and Black families that reach poverty status in 2010 and 2022. Here, it is clearly shown that Black families are disproportionately affected by poverty despite making up a smaller portion of the total population in Portland. This goes to show one of the many ways Black Portlanders experience disadvantage in what seems to be a liberal city. Just below those two bar graphs is the data from interviews. After analyzing the content of each interview, I was able to identify three overarching themes that appeared in most, if not all of them. The quotes below have been pulled from various interviews and correspond with each theme. The first theme is double consciousness and racial identity. Throughout the interviews, many of the participants talked about how they perceive their own racial identity and also talked about the negative and positive perspective that others may have of the racial identity. With this in mind, they moved through white spaces with vigilance and conducted themselves in certain ways. The first quote reads, "So, it's kind of hard to label myself in certain positions because if I want to try to portray myself as what people see as a Black woman, I could be labeled as aggressive and loud and rude and ghetto. And it's just like, how can I really be myself while all these other people are labeling me something that I'm not? Oh, woman, 18 years old." The second quote reads, "When I walk up, I talk loud, I have locks, I'm Black, so that's three strikes. I just give them the opposite of that. A woman, 35 years old." The second theme is racism in Portland. Many participants share their encounters with racism and discrimination and describe some of the unique and subtle ways that it manifests in the city of Portland. The first quote reads, "How they go about it is playing the so-called white savior and making sure that they are overly empathetic and overly social aware. Yeah, the thing is, that they're overly social aware to a point because it's not that they're the student, they're trying to be the teacher. E, man, 30 years old. The second quote reads, everybody was kicked out and they moved them way out in the numbers, Gresham, which took them out of their comfort zone for one, having to go to schools that they weren't familiar with. People had a community on this side of town, North Portland, so there were babysitters. The bus ride was easy to and from school. Kids had a buddy system walking home, which is a lot safer. And moving out to the numbers where there's more traffic, less bus, the community had to reestablish themselves. K, woman, 50 years old. The third and final theme is access to community and resources. Participants shared their experiences connecting with Portland's Black community and the accessibility of resources that are culturally specific. They also spoke about the significance of having a community and resources available to them. The quote reads, I think because we need the support of people that look like us and people that can relate. It's hard to have conversations with a person that just has no idea what you're talking about. They just didn't have those experiences growing up. Q, woman, 42 years old. From the results of the study, I was able to draw several different conclusions. Black Portlanders are aware of the negative stereotypes associated with Blackness, such as being labeled the angry Black woman, ignorant, or ghetto, but they don't identify or internalize them. Racism in Portland is subtle but manifests in multiple ways. Some notable examples that are common today are gentrification and its consequences, microaggressions that appear in daily interactions, and the uneven distribution of resources across the city. Some strategies that Black Portlanders use to maintain their mental health are going out into public settings and finding different ways to build connections with the Black community in Portland. Black Portlanders employ both confrontational and non-confrontational strategies when navigating racist and/or discriminatory scenarios. However, they are careful to assess the situation before engaging because they recognize the potential for danger. There is a shared need and desire from Portland's Black community to create more Black spaces and resources that are culturally specific. There is also a belief that the responsibility to create these spaces is shared by the Black community, which needs to put a concerted effort towards building a stronger community, and authority figures such as the government and city officials who need to eliminate the structural barriers that prevent Black people from creating these spaces. For this research study, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Raul Lievenos for his knowledge and guidance during this research process. I would also like to thank Dr. Christabel Dragoo, the McNair Scholars Program, and the Portland community for supporting this research. The references for the study can be found in the bottom right corner of the poster for those interested. That concludes the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching.